Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now, I want you guys to do this little exercise with me. So, close your eyes. It's the sun is rising in the morning, beautiful day, and then you go to the ATM, the ATM is locked. Your morning coffee now costs triple. News anchors whisper the unthinkable. The world has ditched the US dollar overnight. The debt. America's been ignoring that, our national debt we've been ignoring for decades now erupt, turning savings to dust and hope to panic. There's no mercy, no warning, a financial earthquake unleashed by the collapse of trust in America's money. This isn't some distant dystopian fantasy. Dominoes effect are already falling piece by piece, push by, you guessed it, our own hands. See, this whole thing here began with a decision that seems, I guess, righteous at the time. It seems like that's the thing we do. We go around the world and we're so righteous, like we're so great. We make all the right decisions. Meanwhile, we have a horrible history. Namely some of the things that is going on right now, some of the conflicts that we're backing up right now. So that's another day for another video. But yeah, so, we're like, hey, we're a righteous nation and we're going to dictate to other people what to do. So what happened? Well, in February of 2022, Russia invades Ukraine. Within days, the United States and its allies made an unprecedented move. What did they do? They froze, I would say, according to the Russians, they stole $300 billion of Russian central bank reserves. Now, this money, it's not private oligarch money. It's not dirty cash from corrupt dealings or selling drugs or guns or anything like that. These are foreign reserves. These are sovereign reserves. Basically, the financial equivalent of a nation's life savings. For the first time in modern history, a G20 nation's sovereign wealth has been seized outright. The message ricocheted around the world's central banks like a shotgun. Your dollar reserves aren't safe if Washington decides you're the enemy. The Russian asset freeze wasn't America's first use of the dollar as a weapon. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time. We sanction everybody. But the problem this time is that it was the most brazen. And then there's a long list of countries that America have sanctioned. Iran is sanctioned, Venezuela, North Korea, Afghanistan. We sanctioned Libya. We sanctioned Syria. We sanctioned even small countries. It doesn't even matter. We sanctioned poor countries, Haiti. We were like, hey, we don't care. We're just, everyone gets it. Everyone's gonna get it. Or we don't like you. You said something we don't like. You're getting sanctioned. All right. So countries. These smaller countries, so far, all the countries that we've isolated, North Korea, all these different places, they're small countries. All right. So we can, push them around. There's not going to be much global economic disruptions. But the problem is Russia's different. Russia is massive. Russia is a major supplier of grain, Russia's a major energy supplier, a major grain exporter, a nuclear power with deep economic ties across Europe and Asia. By freezing Russia's reserves, America revealed the full scope of its financial single key veto over the global economy. Yeah, I think here's the problem that I think a lot of our politicians don't understand. The whole purpose of the US dollar become the world reserve currency so that we can make this money readily available and liquid to other countries. This dollar is the world's money. We were entrusted with this task to basically provide liquid to fund the world with dollars, so countries can do their business, fund projects, buy things, trade, and so on and so forth. That was the whole purpose of us becoming the world reserve currency, so we can facilitate these types of transactions. But we've abused that power. We weaponized this whole thing. The problem is the weaponization kit, not only that it was a terrible idea to do, we just kept adding more and more and more tools to this kit of weaponization of the US dollar. basically we cut countries from SWIFT. We'll freeze assets held in dollar accounts, imposing secondary sanctions on anyone who dare do trades with countries that we deem deplorable. Basically, anybody who does business with countries we blacklisted or whatever that means, we will sanction you too. Not only are we going to sanction countries, we're going to do secondary sanctions, and we manipulate the Federal Reserve clearing system. It's insane. It's out of control. The Treasury Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence received this year, in this year's budget in 2025, this is what they came up with, $231 million to expand these enforcement powers. Basically, that's what they want to do. And they're spending money to enforce powers to seize more countries' assets and be more belligerent, even though the evidence is showing that it's kind of backfiring. You think maybe they'll back off a little bit, they'll think twice about it. Nah, I don't think so. But here's the thing with weapons. Weapons have a way of backfiring on those who wield them, And one of my favorite economists, I talk about him all the time, is Jeffrey Sachs, and he discussed that in one of his interviews. And I'm gonna play some of that for you guys in a second. And he's not the only one. Many economists has been warning about this, and it seems like these politicians. It doesn't even matter where you fall in the political ideology, whether you're left or right, they both do the same thing. I don't wonder if they don't care or if they don't know. I would say that they do know, because many economists has been warning about this. So I'm going to go ahead and play a little quick clip here from Jeffrey Sachs, and let's go ahead and have a listen.
I do believe that there needs to be a true alternative to the dollar-based payments mechanism. The U.S., unfortunately, has not only gone protectionist, but it has weaponized the U.S. dollar. It's done that especially, of course, vis-a-vis Russia, Venezuela, Iran, North Korea, and other countries that are deemed to be geopolitical adversaries of the United States. It's frozen their reserves. It's confiscated foreign exchange. It has blocked payments. It has thrown Russia out of the SWIFT banking system, and so forth. But China is very much affected by all of this, because China's trade with its natural trading partners is also impeded, including by the threat of secondary sanctions. And for this reason, the BRICS have talked about introducing non-dollar payments. I believe that this is absolutely the right thing to do if the United States weaponizes the dollar, which unfortunately it has. My own advice to the U.S. macro authorities repeatedly was, do not confiscate other countries' reserves and do not apply unilateral or secondary sanctions. But the U.S. Wants to weaponize the currency, and then the BRICS have to respond.
And that's exactly what they're doing. The BRICS countries are responding. And the thing is, here's a question that many countries are asking themselves, right? Because they go, well, if $300 billion can vanish overnight for geopolitical reasons, how safe were their own reserves, right? I mean, you would ask yourself the same thing. If these cartels, these thieves can go ahead and steal your money overnight, well, how safe, if they can do that to them, why wouldn't they do it to me, right? So the data tells the story. Here's the thing. The dollar shares of global foreign exchange reserve has been declining for 2 decades, from over 70% in 1999 to 58% by 2024. But after the Russian sanctions, that pace accelerated. For the first quarter of this year, the dollar share has dropped to 57%, the lowest it's ever been since the euro's creation. Countries weren't just reducing dollar holdings gradually, they were fleeing to alternatives. Gold purchases by central banks doubled as emerging markets nations led by China, Russia, and Turkey stockpiled the precious metal. the share of gold in emerging markets reserves climbed from 4% to 9% in a decade. Even America's closest ally were quietly diversifying. Japan, the largest foreign holder of U.S. Treasury bonds with over $1.1 trillion, began reducing its exposure. European central banks shifted towards euros, and developing nations explored yuan-denominated trade agreements. The thing is also, too, is like, and then these sanctions, don't get me started on that. I did a whole video on that, right? So while the Western leaders debated the ethics of seizing Russian assets, rival nations weren't just sitting around waiting for permission from the United States to build alternatives. And they did just that. The BRICS nations that Jeffrey Sachs was talking about, which are the coalition of nations which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now, these countries were the original members, and they just keep expanding. Egypt is a member, Ethiopia, Iran, the UAE. These countries, and there were many more, Venezuela, a bunch of them, Cuba, these countries accelerated plans for a dollar-free financial system. China led the charge with their aggressive yuan promotion. By mid-2024, 27% of China's total trade were settled in yuan, up from 17% in 2022. The Chinese central bank built currency swap agreements worth a record, you ready, 4.3 trillion yuan, while requiring major banks to increase yuan-denominated cross-border transactions that grew from 40% to 40% from 25%. Russia, despite or perhaps because of the sanctions, pioneered the yuan dollar bypass mechanism. Nearly 90% of trade between Russia and China now occurs in rubles and yuan, completely circumventing the dollar system. What began as a survival mechanism became a template for other nations seeking to reduce dollar dominance. The technical infrastructure followed quickly. The BRICS bridge payment system, connecting member nations' central bank. So basically, they created a pay system that all these countries that wants to join BRIC, basically the system, it's like the SWIFT. It basically is accounting to the SWIFT system. All these countries now, so let's say, country A wants to trade with country B, with the SWIFT, for some of you guys who may not know what the SWIFT system is, basically is a interpayment system between countries. So let's say I sell soap and you're buying it. Country A makes soap. This country B is buying soap from the country A. In order to pay to pay them, the SWIFT system would allow these two countries, their banks, to communicate and then facilitate the payment system, facilitate the transactions, right? So basically, when America kicks you out of that SWIFT system, because the dollar is being used by everyone, it's hard. It put an enormous strain on your business, on your country, and on your people, because now you don't have access into that system. You cannot buy things or sell things. It affects your economy in a horrible way. But this break pay system is basically a counterweight to SWIFT. The thing with this new system is that transaction between these countries can be settled in 7 seconds. 7 seconds. And it's 98%. The fees of this system is 98% cheaper than traditional dollar-based system. Unlike the slow, expensive SWIFT network that America controls, which takes about roughly 1 to 4 business days to settle, this new system was fast, cheap, and sanction-proof. While America wielded its financial power abroad, the foundation was cracking at home. For the first time ever, our national debt, ladies and gentlemen, has passed $37 trillion, okay? Adding roughly $22 billion every single day. Interest payments alone consume over $1 trillion annually, more than the entire defense budget. Now, here's the terrifying arithmetic. 31% of all publicly held debts need to be refinanced every 12 months. So every year we go through this. We guys hear all about it, right? The debt ceilings, we have to raise the debt ceilings. So every year we have to America must convince investors to roll over trillions of dollars in maturing bonds, right? Here's the thing. The weaponization of the dollar made this debt refinancing increasingly precarious. Now think about it. Why would China, Russia, or even neutral countries want to hold large reserve in a currency that can be frozen at Washington's whim? This was a bad idea. This was a terrible message that we sent to the world. You either obey, you do what we tell you, be a good boy, or we punish you. That's it. And the rest of the world goes, well, no, we're not having it, man. We're done with that. Foreign ownership of U.S. Treasury bonds had already fallen to 30%. That was down. It was at 50% back in 2008. Now it's at 30%. According to J.P. Morgan estimates, each 1% decline in foreign holdings would drive Treasury yields up by more than 33 basis points. If foreign central banks accelerated the dollar exits, borrowing costs for America and every American would skyrocket. For decades, holding dollars meant there's like safety and liquidity. Like it was a good thing. Like everybody wanted to hold dollars because we know it's safe. America is not going to do sanctions or they're not going to do tariff wars on you. So everybody wanted to hold a dollar, right? So it makes sense. Now, every single central bank around the world is asking themselves, will my country be next? Am I next? Every new sanction, every new asset freeze, each threat of swift exclusion drove more countries towards dollar alternatives. It just made countries look for something else. Why would I want to participate in this thing? What happened when confidence in the dollar breaks? It's not a theory anymore. Okay, when confidence in this dollar breaks, and it is. This is not it's not theory. It's mathematical, and the numbers show that the numbers are there. The numbers just also shows that. Okay, J.P. Morgan Chase research showed a significant foreign selling would drive yields higher immediately. If everybody starts selling the U.S. bonds, the yields will go up immediately. Higher yields meaning higher borrowing costs for the U.S. government, which means higher mortgage rates, credit card rates, and business loans for every American. The government would face impossible choices. Either they can slash spending dramatically, right, raise taxes crushingly, or print money and ignite inflation. None of these options would restore global confidence. Instead, they will likely accelerate the dollar's decline. For ordinary Americans, the impact would be immediate and personal. Import prices would spike. Electronics, clothing, gas, food, the cheap goods that has sustained American living standards for decades would become luxury items. We've been living off the hog for a long time. This would be, I would say an eye-opener, a wake-up call. Retirement accounts, bye-bye. Lose value, see you later. The wealth that you've accumulated over generations would evaporate in months. And you know what's crazy about all this? We did this. We created this. Our actions has brought us here. Okay? China's yuan gained credibility not because the Chinese economic China's economic strength, but because of America's overreach. BRICS payment system attracted members not because they were superior to SWIFT, no, but because we use sanctions as a weapon, and these new systems are sanction-proof. The debt crisis and dollar weaponization fed each other in this vicious cycle. It's like a snake. It's eating its tail. Each time we come up with these idiotic, stupid policies, we are hurting the dollar. America's growing, and also too, we're printing money like crazy. Our growing debt made foreign investors nervous. And nervous investors want higher returns, right? That makes sense because if a guy doesn't like to pay back loans, first of all, why would I even loan you if if I loan you $5, let's just say whatever, I loan somebody $5 instead of he goes, hey man, invest in me. You give me $5, I give you, whatever. You invest, you give me $5, I give you 7, and I give you my $5. You're like, yeah, I'm actually gonna keep that. Okay, well, you don't. It doesn't show me that you negotiate in good faith, and that if I do something that pisses you off, you're gonna keep my money. So why would I help you? Why would I want to invest in? And why would I even ever give you a penny? And so this is what we've been doing basically. And what we're doing, we're just not stopping. It just doesn't stop. So I don't know. I don't know what are we gonna do here? How do we change the mind of these people? While all this stuff is also happening, here's another thing to think about: political dysfunction. Washington is a mess. It's a disaster. Debt ceiling. The problem was also too, the other thing that's making other countries nervous and also investors. We have a debt ceiling fights every time. Almost every year, government shutdowns, partisan gridlock convinced global investors that America couldn't be trusted to manage its finances responsibly. Why hold reserve in a currency issued by a country that threatened to default on its debt every few years? The warning signs flash red all across the board, across every metric. Declining reserves shares, weakening treasury demand, accelerating alternative currency adaptation, rising borrowing costs, and growing political instability. These things are just flashing on the board, like it's flashing red. Yet, American policymakers seems oblivious to the approaching crisis. I don't know. I would say, man, you guys, you have families, look out for your own families. Sometimes you try to tell people what's going on here. And this is one of the reasons why I created this channel, so I could talk about these things of what's coming ahead. Sometimes all you can do is tell people about it, and it's up to them to make the right decision for themselves and their families. All right. So the thing is also the United States still possess enormous economic and military power. The dollar still dominates global trade and finance. American capital markets remain the world's deepest and most liquid. The greatest reserve currency collapse in history wasn't announced by politicians or proclaimed in newspapers. It happened in spreadsheets and trading systems, in central bank meetings and corporate boardrooms, in the quiet decisions of millions of investors who simply stopped believing in the dollar's eternal dominance. It's just, what a sad day. I think within my lifetime, I'm going to see the demise of this dollar, which is unbelievable, which is sad. And it's not going to be pretty. The $300 billion Russian asset freeze marked the beginning of the end, because it revealed that the neutral, apolitical dollar was a myth. The dollar serves America's interests first and everyone else's interests only when convenient. And the world took notice. The world adapted. And now the world is moving on. Now, here's the question. Is the dollar, the real question is not whether the dollar is going to lose its dominance. That's not the question. The question is how quickly the dollar dominance is going to come, and whether Americans will be prepared for the shock when their financial foundations finally crumble. The last dollar was still standing, but the ground beneath it was shifting faster than anyone in Washington seemed to realize. The alarm had been sounding for years now, and few were listening. And time has officially run out. So exactly what are we going to do from here? Only time can tell. Hopefully, maybe some, cooler heads will prevail. I don't know. I'm not sure that's, I don't know. I'm not feeling optimistic. I don't think that's going to happen. Well, anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for today. If you guys just leave me a comment below, let me know what you think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe maybe things are rosy. Maybe there's a way we can turn this thing around. I would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment in the section below. Like and share this video. And thank you for checking out this channel. And I will see you soon.